In the vast, sun-scorched plains at the edge of Kruger National Park, South Africa, an old male lion trudged through the dry grasslands, his once mighty form now a haunting shadow of its former glory. He had been the undisputed king of his pride, a fierce ruler who led his pack through countless hunting seasons and brutal battles. But time, that relentless thief, had stolen his strength, leaving him frail and forgotten. His golden-brown mane, once a symbol of power and majesty, was now sparse, tangled, and faded, like a tattered flag waving in defeat. Deep, sunken eyes reflected endless fatigue, while his sharp teeth, once weapons of precision, had almost all fallen out, leaving only a few brittle remnants. Beneath his rough, ulcerated skin, ribs jutted out sharply, a grim testament to his struggle for survival. Hunger gnawed at him relentlessly, and his body bore the scars of battles won, but also of battles lost to time itself. Unable to hunt or protect himself, he was cast out by his own pride, condemned to live alone in solitude. Each labored step he took felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of his past glory pressed down on him with every movement. This was no longer the mighty king of the savannah, but a broken warrior fighting against the inevitable march of time. The old lion roamed the scorched earth of Kruger National Park, a ghost haunting the very lands he once fiercely protected. Each step felt heavier than the last, his massive paws dragging through the dry grass as if chained by invisible weights. His weakened body no longer commanded respect. Instead, it was a fragile shell that betrayed his former glory. Occasionally, he would muster what little strength remained to let out a feeble roar, a desperate cry for acknowledgement. But the savannah remained eerily silent, offering no response. Hunger clawed at his insides like a relentless predator, and thirst burned in his throat. He staggered toward shallow pools of water, their surfaces shimmering under the merciless sun, only to find them nearly dried up. Lapping at the muddy remnants, he barely quenched his thirst. Desperation drove him to stalk antelopes, his instinct screaming to hunt despite his frailty. But when he finally lunged, his jaws failed him, his teeth too brittle to pierce flesh. The antelope escaped, leaving behind nothing but humiliation and despair. Every scar etched into his weathered skin told a story. Battles won, rivals defeated, and seasons survived. Yet now, those same scars mocked him, reminders of nature's unyielding cruelty. Alone, abandoned, and broken, the lion's spirit wavered on the brink of surrender. Would anyone or anything answer his silent plea before time claimed him entirely? The gaunt figure of the old lion, spotted by tourists in the distance, reached Jake and Ryan, two dedicated rangers of Kruger National Park. After carefully reviewing the photos sent to them, images that revealed the frailty of what was once a majestic ruler, they realized time was slipping away. A heavy silence fell between them as they planned their approach. This wasn't just another rescue mission, it was an attempt to save a legend. Armed with medical supplies, tranquilizer guns, and fresh meat, they ventured into the unforgiving wilderness. Hours turned into a grueling journey under the scorching African sun, sweat pouring down their faces as they meticulously traced each faded paw print etched into the dry earth. Every step felt like a race against fate. Would they find him before his strength gave out completely? Finally, through sparse trees, they saw him, a shadow of his former self. The lion sat motionless on the ground, head bowed, ribs heaving with labored breaths. His golden eyes, once fierce and commanding, were now dulled by exhaustion. Trembling slightly, he seemed more ghost than beast. Jake and Ryan exchanged tense glances, their hearts pounding at the sight of such raw vulnerability. This wasn't merely an animal, it was a symbol of resilience brought low by nature's cruel hand. Their resolve hardened. Failure was not an option. The moment of truth had arrived. Jake and Ryan inched closer to the broken lion, their movements deliberate and cautious, like hunters approaching a wounded beast. But this time, they were there to heal. not harm. The air was thick with tension as they exchanged silent glances, each step forward feeling like crossing an invisible line between life and death. To avoid startling the fragile creature, Ryan began whispering softly, his voice steady yet gentle, as if coaxing a frightened child. Meanwhile, Jake held out a piece of fresh, bloody meat, its vivid red hue glistening under the harsh African sun, a lifeline for the starving king. The lion hesitated, its nostrils flaring at the scent of food. Hunger warred with caution in its clouded eyes, but survival instinct took over. With a trembling effort, it stretched its neck, jaws barely able to close around the meat. As it chewed weakly, Jake seized the opportunity, carefully injecting a health-boosting serum into its side. The lion flinched slightly, but didn't resist, too exhausted to react. Its labored breaths grew heavier, yet something in its demeanor softened, a flicker of trust. When the meat was gone, Ryan offered water, holding the container close enough for the lion to drink without straining. Each gulp seemed desperate, as though the cool liquid reignited a spark within him. For the first time in days, the lion raised its head fully, meeting their gaze with an almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't gratitude, not yet, but it was acknowledgement. This small victory felt monumental, a fragile thread of hope woven into the fabric of despair. With the lion now calm and trusting, Jake and Ryan prepared to move it into a specialized iron cage. The old king hesitated for a moment before reluctantly crawling inside, as if sensing this was his only path to survival. Once secured, they carefully loaded the cage onto their truck, ensuring every bump in the road wouldn't worsen its fragile state. The scorching African sun blazed above, but Ryan adjusted the netting around the cage to shield the lion from its harsh rays. Every jolt of the vehicle made them wince. They drove slower than ever, hearts pounding with each sway of the cage. As they navigated the dusty trails, curious tourists paused, staring at the sight of an aging lion being transported like royalty. Some snapped photos, whispering questions about its fate. "It's not the end," Jake murmured under his breath, gripping the steering wheel tightly. For the first time, hope flickered, not just for the lion, but for what humanity could do when compassion outweighed cruelty. This journey wasn't just a rescue, it was redemption. Upon arriving at the park's emergency care facility, the lion was immediately transferred to a secluded area lined with fresh straw, its frail body barely able to move. The veterinary team sprang into action, their faces etched with concern as they examined the broken king. What they discovered sent chills down their spines. Severe malnutrition had left his body skeletal, and deep ulcers marred his once majestic skin. His teeth, those weapons of survival, were now useless, crumbling relics of his former glory. It was clear that without intervention, this legendary creature would succumb to nature's cruelty. With precision born of years of experience, the vets worked tirelessly. They administered antibiotics to fight infection, carefully bandaged the open sores marring his flesh, and provided painkillers to ease his suffering. Each injection felt like a lifeline being thrown into an abyss. Jake and Ryan, standing nearby, watched in silence, their hearts heavy but resolute. This wasn't just another animal, it was a symbol of resilience brought low by time and hardship. Finally, the lion was placed in a specially prepared enclosure, a sanctuary of soft straw and shaded rest. For the first time in weeks, he lay still, not out of exhaustion, but because he finally felt safe. His labored breathing began to slow, his trembling ceased. Though his eyes remained clouded with fatigue, there was something new, an ember of hope flickering faintly within. Every movement around him was deliberate, every sound softened. Humans, who had once been indifferent observers of his plight, were now his guardians. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the facility, even the air seemed to whisper, perhaps redemption was possible after all. Day by day, the old lion began to claw its way back from the brink of death. Each morning, the staff carefully changed its bandages, their hands trembling slightly as they inspected for signs of infection. The wounds that once spoke of pain now carried whispers of healing. By noon, bowls of minced meat and soft food were placed before him, a stark contrast to the raw hunts he once led. The lion no longer had to fight for survival. Instead, nourishment came gently, bite by tender bite. Slowly but surely, his ribs began to disappear beneath a thin layer of regained weight, and his once dull fur started to shine faintly under the sunlight. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. Without predators chasing him or hunger gnawing at his insides, the lion found peace in captivity. Though he would never again command the savannah, there was dignity in his rest. Occasionally, he'd gaze toward the horizon, perhaps dreaming of his lost kingdom. But even those moments felt less burdened. For the first time in years, life didn't feel like a battle. Jake often sat nearby, watching silently, while Ryan ensured every meal was perfectly balanced. Together, they created more than care. They crafted redemption. As days turned into weeks, an unspoken bond began to form between the old lion and his caretakers. Jake made it a ritual to sit beside the enclosure each evening, his deep voice filling the air as he spoke softly to the once mighty king. He shared stories of the savannah, tales of resilience, and whispered promises that this chapter of life wouldn't end in despair. The lion listened, or at least seemed to, his golden eyes occasionally flickering toward Jake, clouded with memories but tinged with trust. Meanwhile, Ryan meticulously monitored every meal, ensuring the portions were perfectly balanced. When the lion showed signs of weakness, Ryan adjusted its diet, adding supplements to strengthen what time had taken away. Slowly, the lion grew accustomed to their presence. No longer did it flinch at their approach. Instead, it leaned closer, seeking connection. One day, something extraordinary happened. The lion gently rubbed its head against Jake's hand through the bars, a fragile yet profound gesture of trust. Tears welled up in Jake's eyes as he realized this broken creature still carried dignity within him. Ryan, watching from afar, smiled faintly, knowing they had done more than save a life. They had reignited hope where none seemed possible. This wasn't just care, it was redemption forged in compassion. The old lion's journey had come full circle, but not in the way nature intended. Though he would never return to the pride or reign over the grasslands as its king, the pain of abandonment no longer consumed him. The compassion of Jake and Ryan, two men who refused to let the legend fade into oblivion, had softened the harsh edges of his fate. In the quiet sanctuary of Kruger National Park's care facility, he found something rare, a second chance. His golden eyes, once clouded with despair, now carried a flicker of peace. Occasionally he gazed toward the horizon, perhaps dreaming of the savannah where his roar once commanded respect. But even those memories felt less bitter now. Every day Jake sat by his side, sharing stories only the lion could understand, while Ryan ensured each meal was tailored to rebuild what time had stolen. Their kindness wasn't just care, it was redemption for both man and beast. As weeks passed, the lion grew stronger, though his body bore the scars of battles fought and lost. Yet, in this final chapter of his life, he was surrounded by love and protection, a stark contrast to the loneliness that once haunted him. Life in the wild is unforgiving, but humanity's tenderness had sparked a small miracle, a broken king restored, if only in spirit. And so, under the African sun, the old lion closed his story, not as a forgotten ruler, but as a symbol of hope.